Hey guys, I'm Noel Salas for the Surfboard Empire. Welcome to Surf and Show. I'm Noel Salas. Today's review is on the Bobby Quad by CI Surfboards. Now I've got two stock 5.4. This is a PU Poly. This is a Spinetek EPS epoxy. Both are coming in at 27.4 liters. I'm 5'9" and 172 pounds. I've got a special guest for today's show, my buddy Magnum Martinez, living in Puerto Rico, helping me put the Bobby Quad through the paces in different types of waves. I also want to point out that Magnum's more of that neutral to front-footed surfer, and I'm more of a back-footed surfer. So this board's pretty versatile. I think you guys are going to love this show. Sit back, get your favorite drink, enjoy the show. Now, from what I understand, the Bobby Quad is a groveler. They made this for Bobby Martinez, smaller waves, Santa Barbara, trying to keep it fun and exciting, doing performance turns in somewhat gutless waves. So I like to start with the rocker because it's super important for me. A groveler needs to have a low entry rocker or somewhat relaxed, right? I like a staged rocker, and CI is great at this. That's basically taking this part of the board under the front foot and making it relatively straight. So a staged rocker meaning it's not continuous. Continuous rocker would be something you'd find in a high performance shortboard, and they need to be moving all the time for those boards to be doing what they're supposed to be doing when you utilize that rocker to your advantage. However, on the Bobby Quad with a low entry rocker and the staged rocker right here and having that straight rail line, that's what's going to give this board that speed down the line. So it's going to have glide, and it's going to be good with just one pump, and it's got that quick get up and go speed. Now, the relaxed entry rocker is also going to make it a great paddler. So for me, when I get on a small wave board, you get all this speed. I want to be able to do a legitimate turn, whether it's front side or backside for me. I like it to have the kind of rocker and responsiveness from the board where I push backside and I've got the traction I'm looking for. This board's pretty wide. Now that width is going to give us good planing speed up on top of the water mixed with the bottom contours, and we'll look at those in a minute. But for me, with the medium exit rocker in the smaller waves, I still felt like it had that speed. I had the drive where I'm pushing off my rail, and the board's not only holding, but it's also squirting with speed from turn to turn. Now, one of the things that's really important is when I talk about this area right here being staged and it being fast down the line, which it is, I also like that probably about right here, I would say it starts to pull the tail in. I wouldn't say it's like a legitimate bump, the CI bump or hip, but I would definitely say there's a little bit more curve right here. And I felt like in the smaller waves and when the waves got bigger, and I really felt like I was challenging the board, is this board gonna work when the waves get bigger? And to my surprise, this board had exceptional hold. It's very rare that I see a board that has kind of this hybrid outline where the board's designed for small wave shredding actually go and overhead surf and have the kind of hold this board has. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the tail design, because it's unique too. I have ridden tails like this in the past, and every time I get on one, it doesn't look like it's going to work, but it works exceptionally well. And CI is calling it a modified swallowtail, and that's because there is some reduction here, right? But if you look at it, it's almost like a double diamond tail. If we just look at this side here, it's got shorter rail line here compared to the point back here. Every time there's a point on a tail, it offers traction. And if we think about a swallowtail for a second, when the board's on, let's say I'm going backside and I do a bottom turn backside, as I set the hillside rail, what's happening is the point and this part of the board is engaged, and this is giving me that extra hold and traction. What I love about a diamond tail is because this rail line is shorter than the point, it's actually going to offer a quicker pivot. So there's something to do with the tail design, the exit rocker, and the bottom contours that give this board exceptional hold and make it good in 1 to 6 foot surf without a problem. Now, I mentioned the bottom contours, and I really want to take a straight edge because I believe it's worth looking at. So it has a single concave way up here, and then it starts to go to a double. And what I think is unusual about the bobby quad is how aggressive the double concave is starting to show itself in the middle of the board. So as I move it back, you can see my finger, it's pretty scooped out over here and over here, right? And I really feel like that creates this water flow and makes it easier for a wider board like this to go rail to rail. Now, as I get right here in front of the fins, you can really see how aggressive it is. And when I talk about it being scooped out over here and over here, that means the rail line is higher than the center line, right? And it starts to change from a double to a V at roughly the top of the quad rear boxes. You hear that? You can even see it a little bit. My straight edge is starting to rock. Now the center line is higher than the rail line. And that's also going to help the board roll over on rail and give me that traction and hold I'm looking for. The combination of the double to the V, along with the medium exit rocker and the tail shape, I believe has given this board great hold. The other thing I haven't mentioned is the rail. Now, when I put this rail in my hand, I would say it's medium, not super chunky. And a lot of times you get into grovelers, they have a full thick rail. With this rail being medium, and I'm getting in waves that are overhead, 4 to 6 foot surf, a thicker rail can be harder to get to penetrate. This rail sat down nicely, and I believe it's like the mixture of everything that they've put into the bobby quad that's making it excellent as a groveler and as a board that you can surf in overhead waves. Now I want to talk about the fins I chose, and pretty much for every review now, I'm running this quad setup. This is my favorite. I've done a lot of fin testing, and I want to give you some valuable information, especially in your quad setups. Now, for me, I want to talk general. This is my favorite setup. I'm running a neutral side fin with a pivotal quad rear. Both of them are medium in fin depth, right? My fins have a large base for more drive. However, I'm running a neutral side fin for the best of both carving and pivot. This template has rake or sweep, and it's somewhat upright. And that's what I'm talking about. It's the best of both the carving, drawing out my turn, and getting to the lip real quick and getting that pivot. And I'm complementing the neutral template with a pivotal template. This is pretty upright. And what makes this fin unique is it's got a flat foil, it's upright, and it's got a little narrower tip, so it's offering the release. And I personally like that. What I love about quads, they're faster than thrusters. They come off the bottom at the peak of a top turn, especially backside. I like a little bit of release there, and I'm getting that from this setup, and there being no center fin. Now, the flat foil offers a more precise or knifey turn. So I feel like I'm getting what I want out of a quad set that maybe I'm not getting with something that has a different inside foil. Let me explain. I saw Bobby running in the video on the CI website, running the CI side fins with a reactor upright pivotal quad rears. So Bobby talks about his bobby quad having that hold and that drive. What you do on the front fin is going to dictate the lines and what the board feels like underfoot along with the board design. So the more rake or sweep, it's going to tighten up the board. It's going to give you more stability, something to push off of, and then you're going to have that drive and the board's going to come squirting out of that turn with speed. And then Bobby's running the reactor quad rear is really upright, and he's getting that pivot that I like too. Now, the difference between the reactor and my fin is, yeah, there's a bit of a different template. They're both upright, but this has an 80-20 foil. Now, the 80-20 just means that there's a little bit of curve on the inside of the fin. And one of the things I notice about an 80-20, which I like, is that when I stand up, the board feels loose with less effort on my part. As opposed to a flat foil, I feel like I push and then my turns are extremely sharp and a little bit more knifey. Now, let's talk about if you're surfing a peaky beach break and you want to get into the lip real quick. What you run on the side fin will dictate how fast you're going to get into the lip. I wouldn't change the quad rears. I'd still keep them upright. I would just choose a more pivotal or upright side fin. So this is my upright side fin. You have the CI uprights. The reactors have a great straight up and down or pivotal side fin and run it with the reactor quad rears. And for most guys that are 200 pounds and under, you're going to run a medium side fin and a medium quad rear. Now, the last thing I want to mention is some of you guys in our community buy your boards bigger, more foam. You want to catch more waves. You don't get to surf that often. If you get a quad set in the board and the board feels tight, the way I would manipulate that is change the side fin to something more pivotal, more upright. It'll loosen up the board, you'll have more fun, and you'll draw a more progressive vertical line.
Hi everybody, I'm Magnum Martinez. I'm here in Puerto Rico, beautiful enchanted island. So I got the Bobby Quad on a trip that I went down to Costa Rica recently in the summer, and I got it at this CI, or the Channel Island factory down there. Ordered just a standard PU. I didn't really go into much detail about trying to get fancy with the construction. I ordered some pretty standard dimensions to what I thought will apply to me. I talked to Noel a little bit, picked his brains, even though he hadn't written it yet. We knew that Bobby is riding like a 5'2", I believe, and my standard shortboard, it's either a 5'5" or a 5'6". I figure that will be the scale, about 5 to 6 inches shorter than what it would be a shortboard high performance for me. So I went 5'0". So it actually feels, it looks wide and it feels pretty biffy for, obviously it's a 5'0", so you need the area, but this board has a pretty wide area, very parallel on the rail. So actually, I think the craziest thing is that right off the bat, I felt this board has a lot more drive than I ever expected. I thought it was going to be a more of a, like, you know, kind of releasey, like whippy, kind of fun little super loose board. And to be honest, and I think you can see it in some of the waves that I caught, I surfed some small, bumpy, like sloppy, wind-blown waves here in Puerto Rico, and also went to Costa Rica and got some nice point breaks with more punch, more energy, you know, like Pacific Ocean, longer period waves. And this board felt really good. It really holds the line. It really wants to draw longer lines, but it has the capability, obviously, of turning really tight in a dime, because obviously it's really short. So I use different fin setups with the future boxes, and I really like the fact that I can get to try different fins, different foils. This time I started with rusty setup. It's a pretty old setup that I hadn't ridden in a long time. And these are the rare fins, you know, so they're kind of like nice and straight up, and they have a little bit of rake. I really like the design of this fin, you know, the template, but they're double foil or 50-50 foil, however you want to call it. When I first got the board were smaller, it felt really good with the whole setup of the rusty and those rare fins, and felt like it released, it was loose. and I was actually looking to loosen it up because on a smaller, very small range, you know, I'm talking about 1-2 feet, it felt like the board could be looser. So I needed to like mess around with the trailer fins and until I found something that was really loose and released easily. Once I got to Costa Rica and I got some more energy in the water and got some better waves, punchier, I opted to try this setup that Noel sent me, and I started using this fin, which is one of the Duke IPA's template. NVS, Naked Viking Surf, makes his fins. They're really nice. I really like the shape of it, but they're also flat foil. So being flat foil, it really allowed me to feel a little bit more bite in my turns, in my bottom turn, and it felt also a little bit sharper. I started surfing with this setup more, and I really like it, even smaller waves. And then when the waves really got overhead, I opted to use the same setup as the front fin that comes with this fin and took the IPAs out. It's a kind of large medium template that Noel makes and it comes standard with this fins, you know. And it's flat foil as well, but it's definitely taller. It's taller than this fin and much more area than the IPA fin. So it really obviously gave me a lot more hold. It felt like I could push harder, and you know, there was some energy in the water, so I wanted to feel like I didn't want to nurse the board, I want to really push it. Also, it didn't prevent me from here and there throwing the tail, although, you know, I'm not a really, you know, loose surfer when I'm throwing the tail all the time, but I like doing it every now and then, and I was still able to do it. So it kind of gave me that range where, like, okay, if it's head high and under, I can ride these fins. Head high and above, and I can put the, you know, this whole set that Noel has, and it gives you more hold. And I actually rode it like that yesterday and it felt good. So there you have it, man. That's another board to add to your quiver. Thank you again. See you in the water.
All right, so the last thing I want to cover is the construction. You guys always ask me, do I prefer PU Poly or Spinetek? And it's really about, what are you buying this board for in your quiver? For me, if I'm buying the Bobby Quad and I want it to be my groveler, I'm going Spinetek. I love that EPS epoxy. I like that extra projection and pop through turns. And I'd say 1 to 4 foot, this is what I'd be riding. Now, some of you guys that want to buy it for that 1 to 6 foot and ride it overhead, surf a lot of choppy conditions, I recommend the PU Poly. I like how it settles down on the wave face at high speeds. This is going to go a lot better if you're going to plan on riding the Bobby Quad as a one-board quiver, your daily driver. Even you guys that ask me, I'm getting better as an intermediate and I want to progress my surfing. What do you recommend? I'm going to start saying Bobby Quad. This board's going to give you the performance. This board's not going to hinder your growth from going from top to bottom, really depending on the size. But if you're using it as a one-board quiver, guys, go PU Poly. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's review on the Bobby Quad. This is a favorite of mine. I'm calling it a one-board quiver. We're going to put it in the groveler category, but for me, it pretty much blew my mind on what this board can do in 1 to 6 foot surf. Now, who does it suit? I think it's best for that beginner, intermediate, all the way to pro level surfers to progress your surfing. Special shout out thanks to Magnum for joining me on this episode, and to CI for sending these boards in for review. Look, if you like the show, subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and give us a thumbs up if you like our content. Until next time, we'll see you in the water. Bye-bye.